just want to kind of let you know this is your show for the most part. Okay, the camera is right here. If you have questions, we would rather you were a little bit closer to the front. When you want to ask him something, we tested the limits of how loud we can be, and it's about right here. So if you have a question you need to ask, you want to come about right here. Okay? I kind of told him he has free reign to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. So that could be about the story, especially since you're writing about that. It could even be about comics in general. We just checked in with him a few minutes ago. He's actually at a comic book store, so how nerdy is that? That fits into what we do in this class. Like I said, I'm going to step away. So I'm going to introduce you all as my favorite class, because that's kind of what you all are anyway. And then, you know, he'll do the talking. All right.
Everybody.
All right. You gotta love seniors because they're so energetic in the morning.
Everybody looks super pumped.
I'm gonna turn your volume up just a little bit and introduce you here. So this is my favorite class. Okay, and it's two of my class periods combined. I teach a class called Man, Myth, Monster, where we talk a lot about you know, where stories come from, where our monsters and demons come from, and I chose your story because I thought it was a really good example of someone kind of facing those monsters and demons, and they're a lot more realistic than the vampires and zombies of the world. As I told them, I told you earlier, this is pretty much their show. So they'll be talking to you, and you'll be talking to them. If you got to get somebody to your sandwich in between, that's cool too. I understand.
That's a donut.
Even better. Okay. So, you know, maybe introduce yourself, Mr. Trippe, and then I'm gonna just open the floor to questions for them.
Okay. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Okay. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
I can hear you. That's good. Well, hey, I'm Dean Trippe. I draw comics, and I actually run a comic shop here in Georgia. This is looking around. It's outside. So there might be a customer that comes in, and I'll make someone who works for me talk to them. So I've been drawing since I was in 3rd grade. Anybody raise your hands if you draw? Yeah, see, here's the thing that happens. Everybody in kindergarten draws, and then they stop unless they really, really, really like it. Look, it's a random customer person. This is a high school in Chicago, Gio. Say hey. So, yeah, I've been drawing since then. I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, and then I got really heavy into drawing in 3rd grade when a friend showed me the trick to drawing Ninja Turtles, which is real easy. You just do like an oval, like another oval, and then the mask. But then I never stopped. I moved schools, and then I was the only kid who could draw Ninja Turtles, and that was a pretty good gig. Then I found out you could go to school for comics, so I did that, and that's a great career plan if you want to be able to impress 12-year-olds, let me tell you. But that's about it. Anybody else in here a writer or planning on going into illustration or anything like that? People who are but are too embarrassed. I can see you. You're too scared to say you are.
Between the two comics, DC and Marvel, which one do you prefer best?
Yes.
That's a really good question. And as a guy who sells comics, man, I can tell you. I grew up reading both, but I was a bigger DC fan. Like, obviously, Batman meant a lot to me if you just read my stories. But I went from there when I was like 11, I started reading comics, and I went to Superman, and then Justice League, and then Captain America, and the X-Men, and Spider-Man, and I kind of went all over. And so I always liked both, but I was always like hardcore. The Justice League was where I was home. But currently, all the talent is at Marvel. If you get into reading comics, you learn to not just follow characters, but to follow the creators. Like if a great writer and a great artist are on a character, it doesn't matter who the character is. Howard the Duck just outsold everything DC put out a couple months ago because they put Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones on the book, and those guys are phenomenal. Squirrel Girl is outselling things, you know? The only thing that's really doing well on the DC side right now is Batman and Batgirl. The new Batgirl team's really good. Plus the movies have been better. Like Marvel movies are way better than the Warner Brothers ones lately.
Any other questions about the story?
So, being a comic artist, how does it feel having a class actually read your story and go over it?
It's really strange. Like, I never intended to tell this story. I got into comics because I like superheroes. I like the idea, like I said in the afterword, that like, use all of your abilities to help everyone you can. That's like maybe the best philosophical statement humanity's come up with, and I am just in love with it. But by the time I think I was like 31, 30, no, I was about to turn 33, and like I grew up in church, so it's like 33 is a big year for like Christians. So that's the year you got to do something and save the world. And even though I'm not particularly churchy now, but I still like had this thing like ingrained in me, like 33 is like a big year. And I had a child, and my son had gotten to the age where, about the same age where this had happened to me, so it was like, in my mind a whole lot. And I realized that, because it had really, like I looked up on Wikipedia and I found out that people who are abused as children don't become abusers. And like I'd lived with that myth for my whole life because it's in every crime show, like all of them. I saw one just like this last year on The Mentalist where like these abused kids become killers, you know. That's not really what happened. And it's a lot of people who've been through pain become more empathetic towards others and care about taking care of people and assume that other people have secret pain that they're not telling. Whereas people who have had it easier, like I'm so happy for them, but then they don't realize how terrible things can be for other folks. But then since I did my book, this kind of thing happens a lot where I have to talk about myself, and it's weird, you know, like I'm turning 35 this year. I've got 3 kids. I run a comic shop in the daytime while they're at school, and I do illustration work and drawing work and comics and stuff like while I'm here. And it's strange that people around the world contact me about my actual life, but I'm glad that it was useful to some people, and that, you know, one of the things that was neat for me is I assumed people who were affected by similar traumas would be interested in the book and feel like they gained something from it, but I've really been kind of honored to see the reviews and stuff where people talk about the craft of it, because I actually spent a year putting together this very short comic because it had to be perfect. You know, originally they were going to have all these captions. It was going to, like a lot of the stuff that's in the afterword was going to be, you know, sprinkled throughout the story. And I realized that by removing those, it slows down your page view. And then instead of you reading my words, the words in your head of what you're thinking about as you see each image are going to be more powerful, more personal to you than anything I'm writing. It would have been a distraction. So, you know, I spent a long time, like when you use that few images, each one of them has to carry a lot of weight. And knowing that this would be the most important thing I'd ever do in comics, I really, you know, worked hard to make each part, you know, powerful and well drawn and convey a lot of emotion.
Thanks,
But it feels good. It's nice to talk to y'all.
anyone else questions about the story or anything else?